for me it was an absolute marvelous, outstanding adventure. It's like I was expecting it to be like 10%, maybe 20% of the excitement of a rocket launch and of flying to space, like in the early days. But after a few minutes or after a few instances outside, I already knew, no, this is a completely different world. It's a completely new adventure. And I would say it's like almost, again, 100% excitement. It's as intense and emotionally for me what I experienced exactly as my rocket launch and flying to the ISS. It's just an incredible day. It's being in an environment where you've never been before, on the outside, walking in open space, in vacuum, doing things that are on one side really dangerous, but on the other side so well managed, so well prepared, thanks to this excellent training that we got, that you feel like, yes, this is like training and I can do it, and you're confident. But it's also a lot of mental effort. In the days before the spacewalk, it's like I was reflecting again and again, like every little step that I need to do. And I was also questioning myself, are you well prepared? Did you do everything in order to master it? Are you up for this? And so it's excitement, and after the successful spacewalk is also a huge sensation of achievement. So overall, it's a 1000% positive day for me. Yes, the training underwater is actually an extremely outstanding preparation for a spacewalk. There are certain differences. For example, you have underwater the water drag. So you don't flip around like in weightlessness all the time, because the water slows you down. Also, you're not really weightless underwater, because still, if you're upside down underwater, all the blood from your body will rush into your head. And here in space, we have zero gravity, which means like the fluids from my body are always flowing up, and I'm always floating. Also inside my spacesuit, I would be floating, but I was lucky. My suit was excellent fitting, and so I was very happy. So thanks, or due to the floating in here in space, it's easier to lose awareness of your orientation. You're constantly moving, and when you're working, you're only focused, or mainly focused, on where you are working, what your hands are doing. And maybe you rotate, you're facing forward, you're facing left, you're facing right, you're facing backwards. And so it's easier to get a little bit distracted on where your tools are, where your tethers are. And so that is in space a little bit more effort to control everything, because you're more static, more solid underwater. But then translation movements here in space, it's so much easier than underwater. Underwater, like translating along the space station, which is in the pool, it's a hard physical effort, and after the training I'm always extremely fatigued and tired. And it was much less of an intense physical effort to do all this stuff here in space. Actually, the tasks that I had were technically not as challenging. It's most of the time I had to do a lot of translations to walk from one extreme point of the station to another extreme point of the station. For example, I had to do cable routing. I had to establish electrical connectors that were problematic in the past, and I had to bring out an adapter, which also, like, initially didn't want to like plug in, and so I had to put in a lot of physical effort to actually match and like establish the connection. So that was mainly like the physical effort of moving across the station and performing all these different activities that I had to do. The technically more challenging activities were reserved for my friend Raja, who was on the robotic arm. He had to establish hydraulic connectors. This requires a lot more interaction with the ground personnel and also with our friends who flew the arm. So, but I still believe I got a better deal because I could see many more parts of the station, and I had better views down to planet Earth. So overall, we're both very happy with what we got, and so it was an evenly balanced spacewalk for both of us. So actually, when we egressed, first Raja, he was EV1, and then me, we immediately started with an off-nominal situation. It's he got entangled with his safer rescue handle in a small tether, and so this handle opened and it activated the hand controller that came out. So this hand controller usually during an emergency situation needs to deploy because we need it to fly back to the station in case that we get lost. But in a standard situation, you don't want to have this hand controller outside. So my task when I got outside and I saw it had deployed, which happens occasionally in space, I had to fold up all the electrical wires and make it a small neat package and put it back into a small compartment and close the door. And that's already a challenge on the ground and not wearing big gloves, but being out in space and having big space gloves on. I initially thought wow, that will be a difficult situation, and let's see if we can manage this. But very surprisingly, it went absolutely flawless, and I think not even 2-3 minutes, I had completely restored the initial configuration. But then a second problem started. I brought back one of the bags that came out with Raja in the beginning, and pulled back the right bag that we needed to bring out for our working objectives. And by doing so, I got snagged in the same tether that he got snagged for his safer handle. And this time my helmet camera lights and my the lights and the camera that were installed on the head of my helmet came off. It's also a known problem that has happened several times in the past, also to my colleague Thomas Pesquet during one of his last EVAs. And so we were on one side happy to have solved the first problem, but then immediately we started with the second problem, and so all that was fixed very quickly with some wire ties that Raja used to fix the helmet light back on my helmet. And then after this initial delay, we were ready to start our spacewalk objectives. Absolutely. It's such an amazing and beautiful view. Being in a spacesuit and being outside, there's nothing between you and the cosmos or planet Earth below than just a very thin layer of plexiglass. And it's just the best view you can imagine. Initially, I was a little bit scared that, okay, will I be afraid of looking down? Because some astronauts reported that initially when you get out, you might feel the sensation of falling and being scared, and then you are stressed and you try to hold on a handrail with really a strong grip. And I thought I cannot afford to have such a solid grip because it will fatigue my arms, and I had a lot of translations, a lot of walking to do with my hands on the station. And so I made a plan, and I decided initially when I get out, I don't want to look down to planet Earth. I will look down later when I feel comfortable, when I get used to the situation, just to make sure that I never get into such a up to such a point where I thought okay, it's I feel scared and I start to grip really hard. And luckily, thanks to these two problems that we had at the beginning, I never had the chance actually to look down and to get distracted, because I was focused on solving the problems that we had, and after they were solved, I was very confident, okay, we can solve problems. So what's the matter here? It's let's do it. And I looked down, I enjoyed the view, and it was absolutely the most amazing view and the most amazing feeling I have ever had, like being out here in space. Incredible. And yes, I could enjoy the view, and I even took 1,500 photos during my spacewalk. Actually, I flew twice over my home area, the Saarland region. The second time was already when I was crawling inside, being inside the airlock. I think Raja was still outside, so the second time I couldn't see it. During the first time, the flight controllers from the ground gave me a call and said, like, Matthias, you're flying over your home area. And I looked out, but it was just the transition between day and night. So down on the ground, they were already in the night, and we were still in daylight, so they could see us. My people from the home area could see me absolutely perfectly. There's even a person who took a high detailed photo where you actually can see the ISS, the robotic arm, and maybe even Raja and me crawling on the outside. So it was a perfect view for them from the ground to see us. But when I looked down, it's like I only could see the transition between between day and night, so the transition between dark and bright. And also I was on top of the space station looking like to the horizon, which makes the view even more challenging because my home area was straight down. So the answer is I couldn't see them. I think the entire spacewalk was such an amazing experience right from the beginning, when we had to solve the issues, the problems, and after successful completion of like troubleshooting, we both felt like, yes, we can handle the situation. And so that was one of the best experience I had, like to say, like, yes, I feel comfortable out here because the training was a perfect preparation. I feel confident that I can do the objectives, and even if there is a problem, we can solve the problem. So that gave me such an amount of trust into our own capabilities, and all the questions and all the doubts that I had before, that was all gone within instance. So our EVA, our spacewalk, was almost 7 hours long, 6 hours 55 minutes, I believe exactly. And we started already very early in the morning, so around 3 to 4 hours before the spacewalk, you're actually already in the suit. So by the time we got back in, and like my colleagues helped me to take off the spacesuit, first one of the gloves, the second glove, then you feel like, oh, I can move my hands again without such a physical strain and effort. And then they take off the helmet and you think like, oh, I can breathe again, I can again scratch my nose. And then you glide out of the suit and you feel like, oh, I can move again, and my muscles are a little bit sore, but you're so relieved, you're so happy, you're absolutely like, you're so charged with positive energy because you just mastered one of the most exciting things that will probably ever happen in my life. And so I was super happy. I was brimming for energy. Despite of having spent all my energy during this spacewalk, I still had energy just by the emotional part that having done such a huge accomplishment. And then you talk with your friends, and everyone has to report something. Everyone has been outside. Everyone also has been inside helping the colleagues outside. So that it was just a huge moment of joy, of alleviation. Everyone was happy that we could do it, that we achieved our objectives, that we could solve even the problems that we faced. And we all were happy to be back inside again and to have completed one of the biggest objectives of our spaceflight mission. So we shared this dream, we lived this dream together, and we had lots to talk about afterwards. And the best thing was, like, afterwards I could enjoy again going to the toilet, having warm and hot drinks and not like the cold water that I had with me outside, to enjoy the food, to indulge in all the sweet stuff that usually I eat a little bit less, but after a spacewalk you're allowed and you can do and enjoy everything. And then like after several hours, just for calming down, enjoying and walking again to the cupola, looking outside again and just like observing and thinking like, oh, that's the area where I was outside, there I did this. So I mentally again walked outside, and then I went to bed very late in the evening, physically completely tired, but mentally still like walking outside and analyzing everything. And then when I finally fell to sleep, and I usually don't dream, but this night I woke up 3 times, I believe, because I was dreaming that I was falling away, that my safety tethers had disconnected from the space station, and that I was lost in space. And like, oh, I woke up and like, okay, it's a dream. And it's a funny thing, and everyone said like the same happened to them as well. It's like, it's just mentally so fatiguing, so intense, and so many emotions. So it keeps the brain busy. And to sum it all up, the spacewalk has been one of the best things I've ever done in my life.